Gentlemen, we are dealing with someone here who has absolutely no life.
This prophetic line comes from a South Park episode that was so bad, Trey wanted it buried forever.
And I was like, please, I was begging, and I was like, do not let this go on the air because I don't want the South Park legacy to be ruined, and this show is going to ruin it because it's so bad.
That episode now has an IMDb rating of 9.5 and an Emmy. It's one of South Park's best episodes of all time, Make Love, Not Warcraft. It covers a topic that is not controversial at all, and that's video game addiction. If you're part of the 90% of the population that doesn't struggle with video game addiction, you're probably wondering, how can anybody get addicted to a video game? Well, video game addiction is a complex process that has a lot to do with genetics, animal biology, environmental conditions, and above all else, the almighty dollar. Video game addiction can reach truly diabolical levels, but before we dive into it, you need to know that playing video games for an hour a day does not make you an addict. Playing for 2 hours also does not make you an addict as long as you're not neglecting anything important. Even rage quitting and smashing your keyboard because you got thrashed by a 12-year-old Korean kid 3 times in a row does not make you an addict. It actually makes you a very valued customer at the electronics store.
Welcome, sir.
What makes you an addict is acting like the boys do in Make Love, Not Warcraft. There are 2 types of video game addicts, by the way. Make Love, Not Warcraft portrays the first type of addicts perfectly. This episode opens with the boys going on a quest in World of Warcraft.
I'm logged on to an MMORPG with people from all over the world and getting XP with my party using TeamSpeak.
But somebody poops all over their fun. A higher level player shows up and starts taunting them.
It's alright. He can't kill us unless we agree to duel.
It turns out this guy has transcended the rules of the game. And forgive me for saying this, but he unalives all of them.
Who is that guy? Whoever he is one tough badass.
When we see the guy, he turns out to be as badass as a soy milk latte. He has a fat, balding neckbeard in a filthy room. He wears a wrist brace because he broke his hand in the great mouse button clicking battle of '83. This is the first type of gaming addict. The scary keyboard warrior who turns out to be a loser in real life. This episode came out in 2006, and from my extensive research, it looks like South Park actually created the first loser gamer stereotype. This is a guy who is stopping the boys from enjoying their game. The boys call Blizzard to complain, and Blizzard is as useless as always.
Whoever this player is, he's played World of Warcraft so much that he has reached a level we thought unreachable.
This guy has advanced to such high levels that even the admins can't delete him from the servers. The Blizzard guys show us exactly what it takes to become that good at a video game.
Whoever this person is, he has played World of Warcraft nearly every hour of every day for the past year and a half.
Is anybody crazy enough to try that? Sadly, yes. Yes, there is. Because Blizzard can't deal with this unbeatable gamer, the boys decide to deal with him themselves. It's a decision that will have terrible consequences, but they just don't know it yet. Cartman rallies the troops.
My friends, as you all know, some giant butthole keeps logging onto Warcraft and killing all our characters.
Cartman convinces all the boys at school to log in at once and gang up on this guy.
The battle is sure to be long, so make sure you all have your special abilities macroed to your keyboards.
But the battle is not long at all.
Prepare to charge! Scroll over him with your mouse cursors, and right-click!
The boys get destroyed, just absolutely obliterated.
Ah! I'm burning! All right, Clyde, hit him with your crossbow. Clyde? Clyde! That's it, I'm dead.
And the Blizzard guy loses it.
Are you telling me all those people's characters are going to die, and there's nothing we can do to save them?
Yes.
You understand why the Blizzard guys are so worried. It's not because they care about their players, because I mean, that would be crazy. There is much more important things at risk. The CEO's third yacht. World of Warcraft makes money from a monthly subscription and around 11 million microtransactions per minute.
Hello, I like money.
But to make that money, players have to keep playing. This requires a delicate balance. If the game is too hard, players get frustrated and quit. If it's too easy, they get bored and also quit. So, video game companies have to fine-tune the balance between ease and difficulty. The game has to be easy enough for you to win, but not so easy that you win every time. That's why pretty much every game has different difficulty modes, and MMOs have skill-based matchmaking. That makes a guy who has beaten the game and is now beating other players for fun and giggles and whatever very bad for business.
And it won't be long before everyone gets really frustrated and stops playing altogether. Gentlemen, this could very well lead to the end of the world of Warcraft.
That's what the boys do. They stop playing World of Warcraft and start playing basketball, but Cartman is determined to get them back to the game.
I have a solution, you guys.
Instead of leveling up by going on quests and raids, which would expose them to their mortal enemy, he wants the boys to stay in the forest and just hunt boars.
Dude, boars are only worth 2 experience points apiece. Do you know how many we would have to kill to get up 30 levels?
And Cartman has done the math.
65,340,285.
That should take them 7 weeks, 5 days, 13 hours, and 20 minutes. But there is a cost. Only 3 hours of sleep. Of course, that's assuming they also don't go to school, don't do chores, and just don't do anything else.
You can just hang outside in the sun all day tossing a ball around, or you can sit at your computer and do something that matters.
Surprisingly, the boys agree, which is worrying. When gaming graduates from a hobby to a priority, that's 100 warning lights flashing red all at the same time. And if you think the boys have hit rock bottom, wait until you see the hole they keep digging. They play Warcraft all day, every day. While there was initially a lot of fun and camaraderie while they played, all that soon disappears. They just sit around collecting points. The only unrealistic thing here is the boys playing together. Most video game addicts play alone and become completely isolated. Even with all the boys in the same room, the social isolation is still strong. They barely talk to each other, and when they do, it's in brief, emotionless sentences. They survive entirely on a diet of Hot Pockets and energy drinks. The boys become fat and pimply, while the already fat Cartman becomes infinifat. The Blizzard guys notice the grind. The boys are going to save their game. Of course, they know what it costs to play a game that much for that long, but they don't care.
They must have no lives at all.
Again, game developers only care about money. They want the boys to defeat the evil one, so they can get all of their subscribers back. But are they strong enough?
We ran the numbers. Even with their amazing rise in levels, they have a 90% mortality probability.
A bespectacled Blizzard guy believes that there has to be some way he can help the boys.
What about the Sword of 1,000 Truths?
This is a weapon that was removed from the game for being way too powerful.
Apparently, it could cause 120 damage per second, with an instant mana burn and an enchantment that boosted stamina plus 80.
So the Blizzard guys retrieve the sword.
Behold, the Sword of 1,000 Truths.
Over at Cartman's place, the boys are ready to finally take on the evil one.
All right, you guys, moment of truth is here. It is time for our final battle. Everyone log in.
But first, they need their fuel.
Ma'am?
Yes, hon.
More Hot Pockets.
When the boys confront the dreaded evil one, the Blizzard guys try to deliver the Sword of 1,000 Truths. 17 hours into the battle, they finally track down Stan's house.
We are looking for a great knight by the name of Loves to Spooge.
Again, very naughty commentary over here. Stan has become a great knight in a video game, while simultaneously turning into a fat loser in real life. But he doesn't see a problem with that because, in his mind, he identifies more with his in-game avatar than he does with his real self. This is what happens with gaming addicts. You start gaming more and more and avoid your life, and that life just gets worse. And for Stan, it's about to go beyond worse. Stan's parents have no idea where he is, and it looks like the whole mission is going to fail. But one of them has an idea.
If we could get to a computer, we could sign on to the World of Warcraft and give the boys the sword online.
There's just one wrinkle in the plan.
I don't have a World of Warcraft account, do you?
No, I have a life.
This is another perfect commentary on how a lot of video game developers tend to look down on their fans. They're also acting a lot like dealers over there by refusing to get high on their own supply. And that's because they know something we don't. We'll get into that in a bit when we cover the second type of gaming addict, but in the meantime, they find somebody with no life, Randy.
Oh my god.
He logs into Warcraft and delivers the sword.
Stan! I've been sent here to bring you this. This sword can completely drain his mana.
Stan is more concerned with how his daddy got there, but there's no time to explain.
Just take it. Here.
There is just another teeny tiny wrinkle here as South Park mocks video games just a little bit more.
How do you hand something from one player to another?
Bring up your inventory screen. Control-I.
Okay.
As soon as Randy hands over the Sword of 1,000 Truths, he gets stabbed by the evil one. But now that they have the sword, the boys can make quick work of the evil one. Then, Stan goes back to his wounded dad. Randy says the scariest words a father can ever say to his son.
I've never been able to say this before, but I love you, son.
I am proud to announce that my dad has never scared me like that. Those words are... Randy dies and the other players come out to celebrate.
Who did it, you guys? We're totally heroes.
Heroes indeed. They just saved a mega corporation billions of dollars in lost revenue and got paid... Hold on, let me just do the math real quick. Negative $15 each. That is the cost of a Warcraft subscription. In the midst of all this, Stan asks the one question all heroes ask after slaying the dragon.
What do we do now?
And Cartman's answer is pretty depressing.
What do you mean? Now we can finally play the game.
This says it all. Addicts play the game to play the game. There is no higher goal in sight apart from maintaining the constant drip of dopamine. But the loser gamer is just escaping his often unremarkable life with video games, so he can quit relatively easily. At least when compared to the second type of gaming addict. The second type of addict is actually a gambling addict and a video game addict rolled up into one super addict. These are the guys who spend all their money they can't afford on in-game purchases because they just can't control themselves. We used to see these guys exclusively on mobile games. As an annoying PC snob, I never played mobile games. I used to believe that anybody who'd ever played Candy Crush, because those who play Candy Crush are just way too chicken to play StarCraft, and obviously they don't want to get humiliated by some Korean kid, like a real man, deserve to lose all of their money. But God doesn't like snobs, so he sent Ubisoft and EA to punish me. But mobile was just the testing ground. Today, AAA PC and console games alike are designed to be just as addictive as the mobile slop that pioneered that kind of gaming addiction. Here, we can fully lay the blame on gaming companies. The addictive elements are there by design. While Type 1 gaming addicts tend to be the unfortunate types who use video game badges as a substitute for real-world accomplishments, Type 2 addicts are regular everyday people who are targeted by games that are deliberately designed to exploit any pre-existing addictive tendencies. So, how do game developers make their games so addictive? How do they get people to play them? And what can you do to avoid it? Season 18's Freemium Isn't Free answers all of these questions better than I ever could. The episode can be summarized in one line.
Freemium. The meum is Latin for not really.
In Freemium Isn't Free, Jimmy recommends a new Terrence and Phillip game to Stan. It's not exactly the cutting edge of gaming, even by mobile standards. The purpose of the game is to collect coins, but then you use the coins to build stuff like hospitals. While the purpose of the game is to collect coins and build stuff, collecting those coins is a bloody grind. But you can avoid that grind by just buying those coins. Why spend 10 hours collecting 200 coins when you could just buy them for 49 cents? Now, real-life games are a little more fun than this. South Park just made this game hilariously bad to help the commentary land. It's a perfect representation of how game developers make certain game mechanics unnecessarily difficult to infuriate you into just paying for the power-ups. You can grind it out, or you can just pay to win. If you have addictive tendencies, delayed gratification is obviously not your strong suit, so you're probably going to pay to win. Kyle, who doesn't have any addictive tendencies, spends 49 cents on 200 in-game tokens and immediately realizes that the game is stupid. Stan, on the other hand, isn't so lucky. He falls for the game design tricks.
Can you explain to us how you managed to spend $489 on a mobile app?
But what are these design tricks? As South Park explains it, the success of a freemium game is based on 5 principles. Principle 1.
Entice the player with a simple game loop.
A lot of these games are not infuriating strategy games that give you a headache just from thinking. They're usually so simple a child can play them, which is often the goal. They're also not games you can beat like in the old days. They have an infinite number of levels so you can keep playing and paying forever. They also take you through the levels relatively quickly to give you that dopamine boost. And that brings us to the second principle.
Use lots of flashing cha-chings and compliments to make the player feel good about themselves.
This is borrowed straight from slot machines. Every time you clear a level, there are a lot of flashing lights and sounds. These games make you feel like you've accomplished something when you're really just sitting there playing the same loop over and over again. The only thing that changes is the shapes and colors of the stuff you have to dodge, jump through, or collect. Everything else remains the same. But the flashing lights and sounds make it feel so much more epic. Then there's the third and most important principle.
Train the players to spend your fake currency
This is the abstraction of cash, another trick borrowed from the gambling industry. When you go to a casino, they take your money and give you poker chips. This is because casinos discovered that when people play with real money, they're way too careful. But if you exchange their money for chips, then they probably stop caring. The in-game currency is the video game answers to poker chips. That currency also needs to be completely disconnected from any real-world currency. Game developers won't give you 5 in-game golds for $5 because it might still feel like real money. So they'll give you something like 13,000 in-game golds for $2.99. Because you can't do the conversion easily in your head, you spend that 13,000 in-game gold like it's nothing. Most games give you free in-game currency, so you can just get used to spending it.
And make the game about waiting, but let the player pay not to wait.
This is where they make the most of their money. You can grind for 8 hours to earn that super rare skin, or you can just buy it. You're playing with in-game currency, of course, so it doesn't even feel real. For the real addicts, this tends to be an afterthought. We see this with Stan when he ends up spending $26,000 on the game.
I didn't think I spent that much. I clicked on a few micropays and it just kind of added up.
$26,000?
The fifth and final principle of creating an addictive game is less of a step and more of an overriding principle.
No, it has to be just barely fun. If the game was too fun, then there would be no reason to micropay in order to make it more fun.
That's why modern games hide all the cool characters, armor, even the bloody costume colors behind a paywall. This is part of what is ruining gaming. I used to enjoy the challenge of a difficult game, but now every time I find myself grinding through a particularly tough level, I start wondering if the developers are just intentionally infuriating me so I can pay for something. These tactics are all very effective, by the way. They might not work on you, but to the people with genetic weakness for addiction, they work almost too well. Stan skips school just so he can stay in bed all day and play that crappy video game.
Is it that much dumber than video games you play? Yes?
The boys argue back and forth over this, and in the midst of the argument, they realize that they learned all about this game from Jimmy. So they go confront Jimmy. And first he lies.
I just think it's a fabulous app, that's all. It's not a fabulous app, it's fucking stupid.
Then he gets concerned.
What happens on level 2 after you get the Ontario Nugget?
He can't answer the question, so he confesses.
I never played it. I stay away from this stuff.
Jimmy is being paid to push the game on other people. He's a freemium game pusher, which is really awkward, because this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. No, it's actually not sponsored, but now you know how these games get pushed. They use very aggressive ads, and once you download one of these mobile games, you get ads for mobile games. I decided to look into this for fun, and guess what I found? Raid Shadow Legends is owned by a company that manufactures gambling machines. Aristocrat Leisure is the largest manufacturer of slot machines in Australia and the second largest in the world. You don't get any rewards for guessing the kind of video games these guys would make. If you have never been addicted to gaming or gambling, you probably don't understand how it all happens. So Stan summons Satan to explain.
So there's nothing spiritually wrong with me?
No. So like if you keep doing something too much, eventually there's a dopamine fuck up, right? And you're kind of screwed up for life.
So what does that mean? I can get addicted to everything so I can't enjoy anything?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it means.
Addiction also has a strong genetic component, and Stan never had a chance.
It's wine pairing. It's called a smorgasvine, and it's elegantly cultural.
But I want us to focus on this throwaway line.
This is just blatant Skinner box manipulation.
The Skinner box, also known as the operant conditioning chamber, was named after the psychologist B.F. Skinner. This guy trained pigeons to guide missiles during World War II. Satellites and GPSs hadn't been invented yet, so using pigeons was the best idea they had. And yes, the pigeon-guided missile actually worked. 3 trained pigeons were positioned in a glider carrying a bomb, and once they saw the target, they pecked the screen. A complex series of levers and harnesses tied to the pigeons would then glide the glider to the target, and boom! So how the hell did this guy train pigeons to act as missile guidance systems? Well, Skinner used operant conditioning. The procedure is fairly easy, and you can even replicate it at home. Skinner placed hungry pigeons in a box. The pigeons would peck on a disc to receive food. But this was an experiment, so you know it's about to get wild. First, Skinner began delivering food whenever the pigeons did whatever he wanted, usually pecking on a specific disc. This is continuous reinforcement. This wasn't the best approach, so Skinner began developing food only after the pigeons did what he wanted a couple of times. Peck the disc 3 times and get food. Peck it only 2 times and you get nothing. This is called the fixed ratio reinforcement. It still didn't yield the best results. Then Skinner tried fixed interval reinforcement. He would deliver food after, say, about an hour, no matter what the pigeons did. So the pigeons didn't bother much with pecking the disc. The best result came from an unexpected approach: intermittent reinforcement. It's here that Skinner delivered the food at random intervals. Because the pigeons didn't know when the food was coming, they just kept pecking the disc over and over until food showed up. This experiment has been repeated with other animals like dogs and rats, and the results have always been the same. When they know the food is guaranteed, the animals are just like, meh. But when there is no guarantee that pressing the lever will yield food, they press these things until the lever breaks. That is the power of intermittent reinforcement. The same experiment has also been conducted on humans, or more precisely, weaponized against humans. Intermittent reinforcement is what slot machines and lotteries use. The message is always, keep playing because you never know when you might win. When we statistically know that the house always wins, gambling addicts always think that the next bet is going to be the winner. But gambling is not logical, it's emotional. And because gamblers win intermittently, they're never technically wrong. The next bet could be a winner, or it could be a loser. This uncertainty is what makes gambling fun, and that fun is what makes it addictive. The gambling industry knows this, so they design all of their machines to maximize uncertainty, fun, and addictiveness. Developers have copied those design tactics from the gambling industry and brought them to video games. They go as far as hiring psychologists to make their games even more addictive. Add in features like loot boxes, which are just blatant gambling, and you start to see how big of a problem that is. And it's only going to get worse because of all the incentives. Game developers are making horrendous amounts of money from these tactics, and I mean absolutely horrendous. In South Park, Terrence and Phillip get $10 million each, and Canada starts building hospitals, schools, and ugly skyscrapers.
Soon Canada will be as advanced and developed as Michigan.
In real life, the money these guys are making is mind-boggling. Take Candy Crush, for example. It has a player base of 250 million. 97.7% play it for free, and only 2.3% pay for power-ups. But those 2.3% have made Candy Crush $20 billion. That's 20 billion with a B. To put it into perspective, all of the Star Wars movies that have ever been released since 1977 have made $10 billion at the box office combined. Candy Crush has made double that in around 10 years. And all that money is coming just from 2.3% of the player base, the addicts. And you just know there is some evil genius somewhere trying to increase the proportion of these addicts to 5%, maybe even 10%. And that's not just kids maxing out mommy's credit card on these games, by the way. Grown adults are spending crazy amounts of money on Candy Crush and Fortnite. You just have to look at the subreddits of these games. There's also been some extreme cases in the media, like this Catholic priest who spent $40,000 of church money on Candy Crush power-ups. Or this 50-year-old woman who stole $166,000 from her employer to pay for mafia wars. And these are just the cases that made the news. For every story that makes the news, there are a million more that go unreported. And the developers are just going to make the games more and more addictive.
They don't care that 10% are gonna get addicted. They're counting on it.
As South Park puts it, they have built an addiction machine, and they're not gonna just shut it down, at least not voluntarily. Mobile games are just the testing grounds. Bethesda invented microtransactions when they started selling horse armor in Elder Scrolls back in 2006. Mobile games took that concept and perfected it to a point where crappy mobile games like Candy Crush can earn more money than my AAA title without actually charging any money for the game up front. AAA studios wanted in on the money, so they copied the addictive design elements and added microtransactions to games that they have the audacity to then turn around and sell for $70. It's actually gotten to a point where we now celebrate games for not including scammy microtransactions. That should be the bare minimum. But the battle is lost. The only question that matters is this: how do you escape the addiction engine? South Park, as usual, recommends discipline.
The genes you got from your dad make you more likely to have trouble with dopamine regulation, and that's why you need to kind of watch out for addictive stuff.
This is a little thin, so I went searching for help from some other sources. The therapists recommend therapy. The religious folks recommend turning to God. And the potheads recommend, well, you know, baking. The one thing all of them agree on is that you need to go out and touch some dang grass. So go outside, take a walk, and practice being alone with your thoughts. Because of all the distractions of modern life, we're almost never alone with our thoughts. We have screens all around us, and there's always music or some podcast playing in the background. This leaves you with a head full of other people's thoughts and very few of your own. So, when you try to be alone with your thoughts, you're gonna be bored. And it's gonna suck at first. But once you embrace the boredom, you can start making your own fun. You kinda know what to do with your life, but you never get around to it because you're always distracted. Being alone with your thoughts will remove those distractions and help you focus on those desires. Once you have focused on those desires, start working towards them. Just try to make a little bit of progress at work, at school, or maybe even a new hobby. Any kind of progress is good. Make a new friend, send out that resume, read a book, repair that creaking table. It doesn't matter what you do as long as it's something in the real world that makes you feel a little bit better about yourself. Do at least a few of these things every day, and your life might actually get better and less depressing. The better your life becomes, the less you'll need to lose yourself in a video game. Also, like all bad habits, you can't just quit cold turkey. You need to replace it with another habit. But according to Dr. K, you can't go too hard at first. If you replace gaming with something like lifting, you might relapse. That's because gaming is fun and lifting can be miserable at first. It's gonna take a long time before you start enjoying it. And I'm speaking from experience here. And when something feels like punishment, keeping it up is easy. You need to replace gaming with something fun and creative, so you don't drain your willpower fighting the urge to pick up the console. Usually we get the urge to play a video game when we're bored. It's often the first thing that comes to mind. So, Dr. K recommends resisting the urge, just for a minute, and waiting for the second thing that comes into your mind. If it's creative and fun, do it. For Dr. K, it's writing. For you, it could be cooking, painting, singing, dancing, or even spreading democracy to that poor nation that just discovered oil. Anything that focuses your creative juices away from gaming will help. Creating music, woodworking, restoring an old rusted car, and subscribing to this channel. You probably have a long list of things that you've been procrastinating for a while, so just pick one and do it. Right now, just start by hitting the bell icon. Now, gaming addiction is a fairly new field, and the research isn't very solid yet. Depending on the stats you look at, gaming addictions affect around 10% of gamers. 3 are full-blown addicts, and 7% are classified as problem gamers. I haven't struggled with this issue personally, and I haven't had any close friends or relatives who are full-blown gaming addicts. But I've gone through my fair share of weekend-long gaming binges and gotten robbed by EA microtransactions, but they are always one-off things. All of this is based on internet research, which is still fairly new and experimental. So if you do have methods that have worked for you, please share with the rest of us.